Well, thank you for having me on, McKenna. My name's Jordan Reyes. I am a real estate investor and an entrepreneur. Mostly our focus has been on RV parks. I actually started in new construction and development, but we are now focused more on RV parks and co-living opportunities in a few key states, and we also are buying businesses. So that is what takes up a majority of my day, and I am very excited to talk more about that.
Awesome. And thanks for chiseling some time out for me. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it too. So, with like real estate investing and stuff, one thing I love is that it is so different. Like, it's not just being a landlord. And you touched on that already of what you're doing, like buying businesses as well, RV parks specifically. Can you tell me a little bit about like how you got into that and what led you to like RV parks, kind of like your story on how you got started?
Yeah, so almost everything I've done has been somewhat on accident. It's never been necessary. I'll be honest with you, I've never even stayed in an RV park before I was even looking at RV parks. So, um, so previously I had a well drilling company, I had an ag tech company, I farmed, and that's how I got into real estate. Was I was looking for an office at the time, and I had no idea about real estate. Talked to a buddy, and he was a flipper, so he didn't really know about commercial, and so we decided to partner on new construction. And so that's how I got into real estate, and that was probably 5 or 6 years ago. I didn't know anything about creative at that time. I didn't know anything except what I was trying to do at that time, which was build new homes. And then fast forward, a couple of years later, I was trying to figure out. We did everything build to sell, and it was great. It was fun, learned a lot, but everything we did was build to sell. And so then I figured, okay, I kind of caught the bug, but I realized that I wasn't creating anything generationally, and it was really more of a job. It was a great job, right? And you could make a good amount of money, but I wasn't holding anything, and like I said, creating that generational wealth. And so I was trying to figure out multifamily at that time, and multifamily was very, very competitive. It's still pretty competitive. Really compressed cap rates, which is kind of the key metric that a lot of multifamily investors will go off of. And so I actually found a couple of RV parks. Just like with everything, I thought, it's probably the same as multifamily. There's multiple spots, there's multiple things going on. So I decided to structure a creative deal with those RV parks, and then, like I said, I just kind of jump into everything. And so I structured them. They were $6.5 million, $500,000 down, and like 4% interest. And so I'd been working on it for like 6 months, and I finally got it under contract. And then I realized I don't have $500,000, and I don't know the first thing about running an RV park. So then it kind of that's that the excitement of everything started to wear off, and now I'm like, okay, now I have to go and figure out what to do next. And so I think that that's a big part of everything that I've done is like I will just go do the thing, and then I'll figure it out. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck is that they get thinking about, well, what's the next step, or what do I have to do, what's the full game plan. 99% of people don't have a game plan all the way built out. You have to, in business and in real estate, there's going to be some ebbs and there's going to be some flows. And so what ended up happening is I actually partnered with Pace Morby on our first RV parks. That's how I got into RV parks. And so now I've seen the other side of that and the opportunity in the space, and there is a lot more to an RV park than there is more traditional multifamily or self-storage. It's more business, so there's a lot of levers to pull. You can really change the dynamic of a park, but that is how I got into RV park investing, and that's why it is more of our focus now.
I love that. And so there was a bunch of stuff as you were talking that I was like making mental notes in my head to ask about.
Yep.
Because so many people who are going to be listening to the podcast have no idea about anything. And real estate investing is one thing we are talking about. It's not like a main focus, but I want to at least let people know kind of like what some of these terms are. So you mentioned, one thing you mentioned was cap rate. on, well, I guess start with pretty much everyone will know residential versus commercial, right? Like
Sure.
business buildings, apartment complexes, things like that. But can you go a little bit deeper into like the differences between what a residential, what commercial would be, what you mean by multifamily, what you mean by cap rate? Kind of just give a brief synopsis of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so residential is the home you live in or the home you rent. It's on the smaller scale. It's usually one, maybe two doors. Anything under one to four units is considered residential in the lending world. Anything over 4 units, so think of a larger apartment complex or an RV park or a industrial building or self storage. Those are all fall under commercial, and so those are the key differences. You'll also find when you're talking to people, there's two major differences. When you're in residential, it's typically very emotional for people. It's usually their biggest asset, right? So if you're trying to buy, even through an agent, there's a lot more emotion tied to it. When you get into the commercial and the larger space, it's more about the numbers, and that's why you have things like cap rates and NOI and gross revenue and all of these things. And you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know what they all mean. I mean, you can put it into Chat GPT and it'll tell you, right? But when you are talking with brokers and a little bit more savvy individuals from an investing standpoint, those are some of the key metrics, especially if you're raising money or if you're bringing on partners, that they're going to want to look at. So your cap rate is essentially, the easiest way to describe it is your net operating income divided by the purchase price. And so that cap rate can be used for things like comping a property and knowing the general area and what things are quote unquote trading at. So that's why people use cap rates, and they gather their financials, and that's kind of the boring side of things, right? I mean, it has to be done, but I don't enjoy that part. It's just a kind of a necessary evil. What I really enjoy is the story. I love talking to people. Everything, once we have something like under contract or we're buying something, I lose a lot of interest, to be honest with you. I love solving the puzzle. I love talking to people. I love developing the opportunity. And a lot of the time, I think even in negotiating deals, even with a broker, people view it wrong. I think people view it as it's me versus you, and it's not a collaborative effort. And what we always try to do is we try to figure out the story, the why that somebody has, and try to solve their problem, provide value to them, and make it a win-win. And so that's what I enjoy most about the process.
I love that. Thanks so much for explaining it. And I love this kind of stuff. It's the whole reason I started the podcast in the first place. I love talking about this stuff, and I also love the fact that we can share what we know, because McKenna's not anything special. Jordan's not. I don't mean this bad. You're not anything. You're not unique, right? Like, you are special, but you're not unique.
No, I'm unique. Everybody's unique. You know what
In a
I
way
mean?
of like,
But
you
you're
won't
not
like.
above anybody else. Like anybody
Yes,
can do this thing.
yes. Like, if we can do it, you can do it. We are not, and like we. It's just a matter of like taking the action or not taking the action, and that is really the differentiating factor of any success. No one is above you or below you. Like, it's just a matter of taking action and taking consistent action. So I want to talk about your mindset. I don't know really anything about like your background, how you grew up, but can you talk a little bit about, as you got started in real estate, making that switch from doing what you were doing with wells, with farming, into where you're at today? What kind of mindset shifts did you have to have in order to be successful?
Yeah. So to kind of piggyback on your point, everybody that has been successful, there's not a huge, the main differentiating factor is, I think, mindset. So to your point, it's the tenacity to keep pushing forward, and the drive to do something that separates the successful from the not successful, and viewing things in a different lens, going back to mindset. So I never look at anything as a failure. It's always a learning, right? So failure comes with a negative connotation. Yeah, I've had businesses that have not succeeded, but I didn't fail. I learned, right? So you take those things and you apply it to the next thing. or the next business or the next endeavor. Everybody hears the success stories, right? You think about the iceberg, right? And you always see the tip of the iceberg above the water, but what's below the water is 90% of the actual iceberg. So that's all of the stuff that you don't see, all of the late nights, all of the struggles, everybody goes through that. It's not an easy road, but if you could see the success at the end of it, would you go through those tough times? 99% of people will say yes. So it is always a mindset thing. For me, growing up, like what I want to do now is I want to help 5,000 people reach their financial foundation, which is a little bit different than financial freedom, because to me, financial freedom is, hey, I'm kind of checked out at this point. I can kind of do whatever. Financial foundation is just like the very first step in that process, and it's the step that allows people that are in a 9 to 5 or paycheck to paycheck. It allows them a little bit of breathing room so that they can do things that either they enjoy, be more present with family, take a volunteer or take a mission trip or even start that side hustle. So that's my goal right now, and we're doing that through RV parks and through some co-living and buying businesses, and that's a longer dive and story. But going back to kind of the mindset of everything and why I have my background, I don't have this huge transformative story. I grew up in a fairly middle class, maybe lower middle class, and my parents worked hard. My mom was great, stayed home and looked after us, and my dad went to work every day. And I saw them not struggle. That's not the right word, but I saw them definitely just get to the point where they were getting by, and it was always a budget thing. And it's really been as of late that I've shifted my mindset just on money itself. So a lot of times we look at, and this is something that's been ingrained in us for most people 20, 30, 40, 50 years, that we have to save and we have to kind of stockpile this money. And maybe when we get to 65, now it's probably 70, 75, we can retire and we can live life, and that's not how it should be. And so that's what I grew up in. That's what I saw. And I even just spoke with my dad the other day, and he's like, that's all I knew. I didn't think about like the next generation or what was going to happen. And that's not a knock on anybody, right? Like, so my grandpa worked in the fields 16, 18 hours a day so that my dad could work in an office 10, 12 hours a day, so that now it is my responsibility to take the next step and do better. And then my kids should be able to view what we've done and expand on that. So that is my goal, just within my own family. But to go back to the mindset thing, like I said, I didn't have this huge transformative moment in life that a lot of people, I think, hey, they might have come over as immigrants and they had $0 to the name. Like, I didn't have that, but it was just enough that somebody was dangling the carrot that like, you just stay the path. Like, we don't need to really change anything. We're doing okay, but it's not going to get us to the next level, but we're getting by. We're doing okay. And so it was only really around the time that I started hanging out with people who thought differently, who were more entrepreneurial. When I came out of school, when I came out of college, I worked for Frito-Lay, and my mind, I could never stay on task. I always wanted to do something else. And then I kind of figured out, after I'm talking to people and doing some networking and figuring out, like, oh, I want to own my own business. I want to create something better. I want to at least work for myself. I want to be more present for my kids on my schedule. And so that's where it started to change, but it wasn't like one pivotal moment. And I think that's probably more relatable than to 70, 80% of people than like, hey, I've had this huge traumatic experience. But when you go to like an event or something like that, you always hear these huge traumatic experiences because that's what sells,
Yeah, and I think that's a very important point of like, it is more relatable to be like, there wasn't a moment. And I also think it's good to iterate that to people, that like there wasn't just a moment where everything changed, like the skies opened and God spoke to you. Like, Because everyone's waiting for that moment. I know I'm guilty of waiting for that moment in some things of like, oh, there's
100%.
just one thing that has to happen and then I'll change. Like,
Hmm.
it's not that. And if you're waiting for that, you're going to be waiting your entire life. So I love that you bring that up because you're right. You'll go to the conferences and stuff and they will give you the story. And it's not that it's necessarily not true, but you don't have to have that and you shouldn't wait for that in order to make the change. So I love that you bring that up because that
Yeah.
is so true.
Yeah.
Was there switching over to being entrepreneurial?
Hmm.
Was there moments when you were switching over and you said you have fun with a lot of the stuff that you were doing with like figuring out problems and doing that like first initial part. What was your mindset shift like when you finally were like, "Oh shit, I'm into this and now I'm through the fun part and I got to get through it."
Hmm.
Like how did you encourage yourself to become more than what you were at that time, if that makes sense?
Well, I mean, I think again, it goes back to a couple of things and motivation and why you do things and the bigger picture and being able to predict, not necessarily predict, but to see your future. Um, I knew if I was going to a job 9 to 5, I wasn't. I mean, yeah, you can. There's some high paying jobs, but it's not going to provide value to the world like you are capable of. Like you're built for more. God made you for more, right? And so when it gets into these situations where there's still a lot of tough times. Don't get me wrong. Like nothing is easy. There's always going to be bumps in the road. It's just you level up your problems. And so from the switch, I guess, from being in a 9 to 5, just kind of regular job, it's not fulfilling to me. So it's not about the money, right? Like, yes, you can create your own value and wealth and do some of those things, but to me, it was not about the money. It was more about I want to do something for myself, and I am okay. If I go back and I look at it, I'm like, man, I worked twice as many hours for literally probably pennies of what I was making, you know. But I was learning, right? Not failing. I was building on things, and it's got me to everything I believe happens for a reason. You're put in the right spaces with the right people at the right time. Um, could I have done things quicker and learned and been in more rooms and paid for mentorships and masterminds? Yeah, I could have fast tracked it, but I didn't. And everything happened at a time and for a reason and for a purpose, I believe. So yeah, there's definitely always struggles, but the reason that I kind of push through is it's bigger than the job. It's bigger than what I am currently in. I have to provide not only for my family, I need to provide for my team members. I need to provide. If my goal is to help 5,000 people, that's not an easy task. And so I know that I need to do more with what I've been given, and that means longer days or tougher situations to deal with, solving, tougher problems. But that's also where you drive and create value, because if you can get through those tougher times, or you can solve the problem that nobody else either wants to solve or can solve or doesn't know how to figure out, that's where you drive value and can really gain monetarily from it. I was at a meetup the other day, and a guy asked me, he's like, I I want to make a lot of money. That was like what he told me. And he's like, what does your day look like? Like, I'll be honest, I'm lazy, but I want to make a lot of money. That's what he said. And I said, well, that's your problem. And he's like, well, what do you mean? And I said, your problem is you're asking what the world is going to give to you instead of what
Mm-hmm.
you can give to the world. You need to provide value first so that it's worth something to somebody. And he's like, that makes sense. And I said, and he asked me what my day looks like. And I said, usually um, I get up, about 4 or 5 and kind of just take some time to myself. And then I try to be done by, maybe 7 or 8 at night. And he's like, you do that every day? And I said, well, not every day. I try to, obviously spend time and take, breaks within the day with my family and carve out that time. But maybe it's more 8 to 10 hours on a Saturday and not as much on a Sunday or whatever it is. And he's like, I could never do that. And I go, the reason that you could never do it is because he said, I'm lazy. And I said, the reason that you can't do it is because you don't have a bigger purpose. You don't have a bigger drive. You don't have a bigger want. What you just told me is, hey, I want to make a lot of money. And that's true for a lot of people. But even to go back to where we started was, you're built for more. I believe that you're built for more. You're built to leave this world a better place than you came into it. And just being rich isn't it, right? So there's got to be a bigger purpose, a bigger want. And that's when that purpose, when you figure out that purpose and your drive, that will make you get up early, make you do more. That will make you want more and provide more, and in turn provide more value to the world.
I love that you bring up the whole purpose thing. And I love that you've iterated a couple times, like the being built for more, because it aligns perfectly with what I want to share with the audience. Because I agree. And it is not just about being rich. So you do have to have your why. Like your why is so, so important. And for some people it comes easy and some people it doesn't. And you can have multiple whys. Your why can change throughout your life. And I think it also is almost like you're finding your why, in my opinion, and you can tell me if you think differently, is almost romanticized to a point where it's kind of like what we were saying about transformations and how people will say these like big elaborate stories on stages because that's what sells, but not everybody and most people don't have those transformations. I feel like it's the same thing with finding your why. A lot of the time people will be like, oh, my why is this big glamorous thing and this is how I found it, and like tell these stories. And so I don't want to say it diminishes people who don't have the big fancy stories on how they found their why, but I think it's so important to have like representations of even the little ones in the same way of the transformation story, right? But finding your why, is saying that it is so important feels like it's not giving it enough credit, because it's paramount. You cannot do anything without finding your why. And that's why for the past year, for me, I've been kind of wandering because I never solidified my why. And it took me a very, very long time to solidify my why. But now that I have found my why and I have it plastered all over like my office, my house, I have it on my phone screen, like all of these things that remind me of why I'm doing what I'm doing. But it was, for me, it was the same thing what it was for you with like the transformational moment. It wasn't this like slap in the face aha moment. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, duh, like that's what it's supposed to be. What is, I guess, your story on like your why? Was it like big? Was it not? Like how did you find your why, and how do you remember it when you're in the hustle and bustle of everything? Because it's easy to forget.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Is again, mine hasn't been transformational. I just always I've been around enough people that it's like, hey, 9 to 5, and they're stuck in that because it's just enough to again get you comfortable, but not enough where there's so much pain that you need to get out of it. You know, that's like every year I have one of my really, really good buddies. He's like, man, I just need to, and he is entrepreneurial. He's got some side stuff too, but he's like, man, he's got this job and he's like, I just need to get out of it. And I'm like, dude, you know, you have enough, you can quit, like quit your job and go focus on stuff. Like we'll go do stuff together. And he's always like, ah, man, it's like, you know, I'm going in and I'm meeting with my boss this week, and, you know, we're going to talk about it. And then I'll say, okay, well, then after that conversation comes back and I go, well, what happened? Well, they gave me a raise, right? So it's like every year it's just enough. And I'm like, this is going to happen to you every single year that you go in for an evaluation. Like you're more valuable to that company. Say you make $100,000, you're probably making them 500, 700 grand. You know, so they're going to give you every year. They're going to give you just an incrementally amount more, and you're going to be stuck there. And so I think that's what happens is we get stuck in that, and that's the mentality, and you see it all around you because everybody's in that. And so when I start to realize that, and I started to see it more, and then I started to be around people who thought bigger, right, and who talked about bigger dreams and had these bigger visions, I'm like, well, I, when we first started talking, like we're not like anybody special, you know. But
Hmm.
when you're around those people, you're like, oh, I want more too. Like I want to do those things. Those are cool.
Yeah.
Like those are awesome. And so again, it wasn't this one pivotal point, but it's just been kind of these building blocks. And that's why I have said that my why is to help, 5,000 people reach that, just kind of that, I don't want to say epiphany moment, but that moment where they are comfortable to go and do something and to go and explore and to, maybe it's to start a restaurant. I don't know, whatever it is, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so I also wanted to touch on it's, it's okay to change your why, and it doesn't have to
Yes.
be this huge thing. Like I am telling you what my why is right now, and I have a plan to get there. That's the other thing. I think that people just say like, "Oh, what's your why?" and then you don't have a plan to get there.
Yeah, you have to
So,
reverse engineer it. You have to
yeah,
figure it out or else nothing will happen.
yeah, I
It's a
think
witch, right?
having the why is great. That's step one. And now it's okay, let's deep dive. How are we actually going to get there and what does that mean for me? So, and again, that can change. You might figure out something along the way and take a side quest or a side path, and that's perfectly okay, right? You still, at the end of the day, you still have to make money for yourself and provide for your family. That's not an evil thing that I think that people might attribute it to. It's part of what you need to survive and all that type of stuff. So, um, yeah, the one thing I wanted to say was your why doesn't have to be, just because you come up with it today doesn't mean it has to be the same in 3 to 5 to 10 years,
Yeah.
And I think just with that too is in the 9 to 5 world, nobody is actually working 8 hours.
No.
Like realistically, you're getting your job done in probably 2 to 3. And so for the highest and like the most successful people, they're taking 2 to 3 hours and focusing on one thing, and then they can move. And that's how like Elon Musk has all of these companies, right? And can move from different things to different things throughout the day. I think that we think that we need to be stuck in this thing for 8 hours and grind on it all day long. Um, and so I think that's also a little bit of when you figure out your why, and then you can kind of spread it around. The why is like your Mount Everest, right? It's like the thing
Mhm.
that's in. I'm heading towards that. I'm climbing this mountain, but it's not an overnight journey. So I'm still going to have to, you know, create how I'm going to eat and on a day-to-day basis, and take care of myself, and
Yeah.
all of those little things that help you get, are part of the journey, but not necessarily the big picture, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So I love that you bring up that it's like the Everest, right? Like you can say that you're going to climb Mount Everest, and that's your why, whatever. But if you don't have the proper shoes, if you don't have like a first aid kit, if you don't have food to eat on the way up, if you don't have enough water to take with you, it means nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference between like, oh, my plan is to climb Mount Everest and then getting at the base and not having anything. Like you're not going to survive. So you have to have that plan on how am I going to feed myself? How am I going to mend any wounds I get? Like you have to have that plan for sure. And then one thing I wanted to touch on too, that it's one of the main things that I'm working on, is I agree 100% you can change your why. My why has kind of shifted over the past couple years. Like I already know my why
What is
currently.
your why? What is your why?
My why, so I have kind of like a two-part why, and this is why I wanted to bring it up because one part of my why doesn't exist at this point,
Okay.
nor do I know if it's ever going to exist.
Okay.
So I have two horses up in Montana with my parents that I'm trying to get down to Texas ASAP. Like my parents are taking care of them. I'm like throwing money at them to like feed my horses and stuff. But my why currently is to get land, to get my horses down here as soon as possible, and to just live that dream of like having fuck you money. Because I love my job. I'm not quitting my job anytime soon, but to have that like nice, safe little buffer, that nest egg, where I have never had it before, amazing. So like to have that, to have my horses down, to have that life that I want where I can come home from whatever I'm doing and just be able to relax and have whatever I want. That's my current why. But my second part of my why is for if and when I ever have kids. Because I'm a hustler. Like I am someone who, like, I want to be doing things. I have never wanted to be a woman that relies on her husband for everything. And I don't mean that in like a I don't need no man way. I mean that in a I feel so bad not contributing. So my why currently is building up my own financial foundation, my own financial freedom, so that if and when I get married and start having kids, I can be a stay-at-home mom, but not have to rely solely on my husband to pay for everything. Mm-hmm. I can have my cash flow or residuals from investments I've made or businesses I've built. And if I want, still sprinkle in some more deals and still sprinkle in some more stuff and have things built out to where I can step back and not work so hard, still be making money alongside my partner, but be able to spend time with my kids too. And then I always see, like, I guess this is the third part, but this one's more of a motivation than a why. I don't mean it insensitive, so sorry if it is. I see like 70-year-olds and 80-year-olds at Walmart, like pushing carts inside. And it's because of the current state of the world that we're in. Like people have to work because their retirement.
Oh, you're talking about like working.
Yeah, so I see them like working and like pushing carts in the rain and doing all this labor. And I'm like, I don't want to be 75, 80 and working at Walmart. Mm-hmm. I want to be living life with my grandkids and gardening and crocheting shit for people. Like, I don't want to be doing that. And the only way to do that is to start now. I can't wait until I'm 15 and be like, oh shit, well, I have 20 years to figure that out. Like, starting now will set that foundation. So the two parts of my why are to live the life I want now and to prepare for whatever's coming in the future. I see it as like, I don't want to let my kids down who don't even exist. And so any day that I'm not doing something, that I'm not building towards that I'm getting closer and closer to the day that I have kids and I have a family and I have that like hobby farm or however that actually like transpires. Every day, today, tomorrow, the next day that I don't do it, I'm one day further away from that goal and I'm disappointing and letting down future me and my future kids and my future husband and what I want. So that's a big, like, I think about it daily. And like I said, I have it plastered. Like I have my horses plastered everywhere where it's like every day I'm reminded like, hey, they aren't here and they're getting older and I don't want them to die up there. I want to be able to be with them. They've been with me since I was 15, like half my life. It has to be like a very, very strong, almost anxiety producing. Like put your feet to the fire, like get on it, but don't like stress yourself out. But like I was saying before, like, I've switched my why, and sometimes you will switch your why too many times because you're kicking a can down a road. So you have to find something and stick with it. So like the kid thing, no matter what, that will always be my why. Some things might pivot in between there because when I get my horses down here, which I'm manifesting and working on it being this year, when I get them down here, well then I don't have anything in between because I'm not dating anyone. I'm nowhere near getting kids. Like, so that's not a factor. So, but I'm like, that is something that is not like on the horizon as far as I know. If you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, right? So to get my horses, I have to find something in between. But there's a difference between finding a why in between your big, big why and being like, oh, well, this is what I want. And then getting scared of success and shrinking yourself and being like, no, this is actually my why. So now I have to pivot because what I wanted to do here doesn't align with what I want to do now. And you keep going back and forth. And I can speak on it because I've done it. Yeah. I've switched back and forth and been like, no, like I don't want to wholesale because of this, and this isn't really like where I want to go, so I'm going to go ahead and like jump into raising capital. And then I'm like, you know what? No, that doesn't make sense for me either because that doesn't align with my why, so I'm going to go here. And it's so easy to do that. And that's a conversation you have to have with yourself. Like, no one can be on a podcast and tell you how to do it. You just have to be so honest with yourself when you're finding your why, that it's actually your why and it's not another distraction that's keeping you from being successful.
Yeah, I think that you touched on a couple of things. Obviously, for you, there's a bigger why. The smaller why, I would say, is more of like what you're actively doing, your active income, your short term goals. Whereas your why, if you look back again at your climbing this mountain, you might climb the mountain, but like, oh, I want to go explore this waterfall off to this side, or I want to go explore this little campground, or I want to do, and so those are kind of more like, your side quests or something like
Yeah.
that are a little bit more active. Like I'm going to, oh, that's a 3 hour hike. I'm just going to go do that. So now I can do that. So also giving yourself enough grace to be able to do that. Those things that may not, so like if you're climbing the mountain and you know the quickest way to get there is from point A to point B, but you're going to take a detour, it's okay to take the detour. And when you're taking a detour, it's not going towards the summit, right? But but you're going towards a side quest, or you have another goal, or you have something else, and that's okay to do. And like I said before, it's important to have your short term kind of active stuff, and then the longer term, the bigger why, your summit, your Mount Everest, and just when you go and you're on a flight, what everybody, if you asked everybody, it's like, hey, would you want to save lives? Something happens on this flight. Do you want to save lives? Nobody's going to say no, right? But what's the first step that you have to do? The air mask drop down. What's the first thing you have to do? You have
Put
to
yours
take care
on.
of yourself first, right? That doesn't take away from, hey, I have a bigger why. I want to save people. I want to be of value, whatever it is, right? I'm just, you know, correlating the stories. Everybody's going to want to save those lives and do as much as you can. But the very first thing you have to do is take care of yourself in the short term, right? So that's kind of your
Yeah.
short term. You're more active. The things like, hey, I'm going to go buy this property because I'm getting the horses down here, or hey, I need to wholesale a deal. I don't want to wholesale my whole life, but I'm going to wholesale now so that I can make another 5 grand or 40 grand this year, so I can take a little bit more time and I want to be a little bit more present, right? Those are the things that are kind of those side quests, and those are okay, and they don't have to perfectly align with your Mount Everest because they're kind of offshoots, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that too, and I love the analogy in keeping with the Mount Everest. And one thing that came to my mind when you were talking about like the side quest, like you can go see the waterfall, right? As I watch people throughout my network now, the people I know, like the rooms I'm in are a lot higher than they used to be in net worth. Like it's really fun to be in those rooms, and there's so many different dynamics of what people think. And keeping on that analogy of Mount Everest and like going on the side quest, like gonna go see a waterfall. Like you go and you see like the scenic route, right? I think it's important to do that. And also I think it's important for people to understand, because we have like the Dave Ramseys of the world that are like, you can't even get a $7 coffee. Like if you're on this journey, you can't do shit. But you can, because it's your journey. Some people do just go from base camp to the summit and they love it. They just hustle, and that's fine. I personally will never do that. I will go and stop at some waterfalls. I will go look at some glaciers. I'll take a break and sit on a rock and just appreciate the view on the way. And likening that to real life, you don't have to feel guilty. Like let's say I wholesale a deal for 40K and I go and decide to like splurge on something big. You are taking away from something in the future. Like you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. But it's not bad and it's not evil to treat yourself on the way. And that's kind of what I got from what you said there too, is like the side quest of like I could sell my horses. I could rehome them and I wouldn't have to spend thousands of dollars on vet bills, food, hay, supplements, whatever. Like I could be doing that. But that's my side quest. Like
Yeah.
I've had them half my life. They are like the last thing of my childhood I'm holding on to. And they just have been a part of me for so long. So that's the side quest I'm going on. I'm splurging on that. But I think it's so important on the journey to remember to make yourself happy, because it's in the climb, it's not in the reaching the summit. And you can do anything you want. You can take as many side quests as you want, or you can just go to the top. But it's so personal and individual, and that is what matters. Your why will not be my why. Your side whys will not do anything with mine. You can disagree with my side whys, but this life is about being more than you thought you could be, but also having joy throughout the entire journey of that wealth.
Yeah. Yeah, you're living
So I love
life.
that.
You're not working your life away, essentially is what.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Dave Ramsey is so popular, is because again, we have this mentality and this school system, whether you believe it or not, your homeschool, whatever you're doing, we have this system that was built essentially by Henry Ford and
The industrial people.
yes, and the reason that was built, people have their opinions on that. Hey, this is really evil. This is like, you just wanted to, it's real big capitalism and you wanted to put your foot down on and step on the necks of others. Cool. You could feel that way as well. And there's another train of thought that says the reason that it was done is because people couldn't decide for themselves, right? You give somebody kind of free reign and they're like, well, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how to create value, or I don't know, like, I can't think bigger. And so they're given this path, this industrial work, the 9 to 5, the office, the check-in. I've spoken to so many people, and unfortunately, there's human nature, and this will be some people that you meet, they cannot think outside of this realm. And
No.
if they're like, hey, I don't know what to do, I need somebody to tell me what to do for me to go down this path or whatever. Unfortunately, it is what it is. But that's, again, human nature. And I think that's why Dave Ramsey is so important, because he says, like, hey, here is what you're going to do, and these are the steps to get there, and here's the playbook. And we're sitting here going, yeah, you could do that. But if you want to, like, enjoy life, that's okay too. And now
Yeah, like you don't have to pay
these
cash for a
parameters.
house.
Yeah, you have these like bumpers that you're not sure is that okay to do? Is this not okay? Like, can I get this cop or whatever it is? But I think that's why Dave Ramsey is so important, because it's very straightforward and you don't have to think and you don't have to kind of project and do some of these things that we're talking about, which is unfortunate or fortunate, however you want to look at it, but it is kind of human nature. I
Yeah.
guess.
And I agree. It's neither good or bad. Like I don't agree with a lot of the stuff he says, but he's good, and he's, like you said, important for those who don't choose to think differently. And there's somebody for everybody. And if that is the life you want to live, where like you just follow those rules, cool. But, and this is not a like slam sesh on Dave Ramsey, but like Dave Ramsey's rich because you listen to him and pay him money, when you could be doing the same thing he does and not have to listen to the rules he makes, because you'll be rich by doing what he does and not the rules he's setting. I don't know if that makes sense at all, but like, we won't get into it because it's not important. But there's a lot about Dave Ramsey. I'm like, if you just figure out what he's doing, you could do it too and be rich, not having to pay $400,000 and not have a mortgage on a house.
Right.
But I digress. So I want to touch real quick on your why and the helping 5,000. Kind of give me a little bit of why you came up with that why, and what happens after that why is done.
So that's a very, very good point. Again, that's why I get so, you can say shiny object syndrome, you can say whatever. I am not really interested in running the deal, right? So like I have an awesome team. And so when it gets to the point where it's like operational, I'm like, I don't know how to do the paperwork. I don't know how you guys want to do this thing. Yeah, obviously I have to be a part of those conversations. Yes. But when it gets to that point, I lose a lot of interest because, again, it's about the climb, it's about the thrill of the chase, it's about the adventure and trying to solve that. And it's like, we solved it. And that's not as fun. Now we just have to like put these systems in place. Like that's not very fun. That to me, anyway. So with the 5,000, it's a stretch goal, right? I think I have a pretty clear path to get there. I'll just kind of dive into it a little bit. So we are buying a business. That business has currently 10 employees. We can probably hire another 20 to 30 employees. And so what we're going to do is we're going to shift how they come into work. So it's usually a 9 to 5. We're going to pull them forward. Hopefully this is the plan. So we will pull them forward. So now that they are in the office from essentially like 5 a.m. to like 2, 3. And the reason that we want to do that is so that now they, at 2 or 3, they can be home, they can be more present, they can be better moms, better dads, go to the activities, go to the sports without having to worry about like, I had work to be, I can't show up. That is, 30 people, one business, and if the average family is 4, that's 4 times 30, that's 120 people that we've helped. Right? So like I can put the numbers together, I can visualize it. Same thing with RV parks. If our average RV park is 50 pads and we have 5 more this year, that's 250 pads, average family, all that stuff. So I have like a clear path to get there or an idea, right? So taking my why and then breaking it down, reverse engineering it. And but it's also a stretch goal. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be tough, and it's not going to happen overnight, right? So I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to have to buy 4, 10 businesses. We're going to have to buy 20 RV, like all of these things, right? That we're going to have to do to get to that number, and it'll be 3 to 5 years. But that number can change, right? That's even just in our core business. That's not like, hey, we're going and we're putting on a seminar or we're doing anything like that. So that's why I chose a number, because it is a little bit of a stretch, but I still believe it's fully attainable. And we might get close, we might pivot, we might change. In year 3, it's like, we've accomplished it. Now I have to figure out something bigger, or I have to do something different. So that's why I have that number picked out.
I love that. And then what do you think your next goal would be? Do you even know what it would be?
So I can't think about the next goal because I have to focus on this one. And again, it is my responsibility now that I've been given this information. I've been in these rooms. I've been with other people. Again, my grandpa worked basically 2 shifts, so my dad could work 1, so I work none, or whatever. However you want to look at it. But I've been given this responsibility, and I have to do that. So I can't think like, okay, well, after I hit that, I'm going to go to 10,000 or 20,000 people or whatever it is. I need to prove out the model essentially first and make sure that we're doing everything, that we're on the path, and we're basically at base camp, right now. So we have a couple of RV parks, we have a couple of businesses, so we are growing all of those things that we want to grow. So we're actively on that path.
Yeah. I love that you said that, because I think people get caught up in like the next thing. You can't wonder what it's like at the summit if you don't get off base camp.
Yeah.
And you can't work in hypotheticals and get halfway up the mountain and be like, okay, well, what am I going to do once I'm up there? Like, no, get to the other half of the mountain before you start getting there. So I love that. Will you touch a little bit on what it means to buy a business? Like, what do you do when you buy a business?
Oh, that is a
loaded question.
Very loaded question. Yeah. I mean, so, like, if you're buying a business, first and foremost, business, a home, an RV park, self-storage, the very first thing I'm doing is I am trying to solve a problem. Whether that be for the sellers, that be for the family, that be for the employee, whatever it is, we are solving a problem. Sometimes they don't have another option or way out, or they don't see another way out. So that's where the creativity comes in. But when we're buying a business, we are trying to install some of our core competencies into that business, create the systems and help it grow, is like the quick way of saying that. So that could be creating a legacy plan for somebody who's retiring. That could be, figuring out more of a sales and marketing effort. I mean, there's so many different things that you could be doing. So each business is unique, and if you don't have the core competency, partner with somebody who does. But if you are given that opportunity, take it and take on that. I would say take on that responsibility. So even if you are not super confident, like, hey, I've never swung a hammer. Why would I buy a framing company or something like that? Take the opportunity and explore it. And you might not buy it, but maybe you find other partners, or you're able to extract value and connect people. Sell me the deal. I don't care. Right? There's so many different things that you can do. So I would just say, like, every opportunity, try and meet it with a yes.
I love that. Every opportunity, meet it with a yes. Would you say you're doing more like people retiring and you're taking over businesses, or doing more of like they need help, they're about to go under, and you're coming in and
Yeah.
doing
What's
systems and stuff?
funny? Yeah, that's actually funny because everybody, like, you listen to Cody Sanchez and you listen to like all of these things. It's like, go find the retirees who don't have a plan. And yes, that is part of it. But our last couple have not been that, interestingly enough.
Right on.
And so again, meeting the opportunity with a yes, and not always understanding or knowing someone's reasoning or why, not projecting. I see this all the time with like wholesalers or people trying to get things under contract. They're like, why would somebody sell a house to me for no money down?
Yeah.
Like, I would never do that. Yes, but you're projecting yourself onto them. Like, there's so many other reasons that people need to get out of a situation. They could have made a ton of money. With the last RV park we bought, the guy had made a ton of money already, and he was just like, I don't really need the money. Like, I just don't want to pay a lot of taxes, so I'd rather sell or finance,
Yeah.
There's so many reasons. And so I think, when you're listening to these stories and it's like, oh, is that a motivation? Yes. The older retiree who doesn't have a plan? Yes, certainly. But that's not the only reason somebody sells a business. Somebody struck while it was hot and it was a good business and they never had to market and they never had to do anything. Now it's like, oh, we're operational. We have to run. We've grown. We've hired so many employees. We need to take care of them. We are not marketing at all. I don't really enjoy it. I don't want to run a business. All of those things, kind of can come into play. And so, yeah, I mean, it is for us late. I mean, there's a mix. Like, so we're looking at some retiree stuff, but the stuff that we have done has also been not retirees. So
I love that, and I think it brings up a really good point. No matter what you're doing in investing in real estate specifically, but just because something has happened in the past doesn't mean it's the only way things are going to happen, and everything is very circumstantial. And what I mean by that is, like, you're right, like Cody Sanchez, she'll talk about like, going after people who are retiring, taking over their businesses. For you, you've had your experiences of different situations that people go into, but the reality is that there's not a one size fits all. There's not a recipe where it's like 1 cup of this and a teaspoon of that equals your deal. It's just a hodgepodge of a mess every single time.
Yep.
And that's what makes it good. And that's where it comes back to what you said, like, go into every opportunity and every situation with a yes, because you might be the person who finds a deal that no one has ever seen before. And that's not to scare you away and be like, oh, well, no one's seen it, so that's like scary and it's a risk. Yeah, it is. But you have been given the opportunity to take it. And if you can do it, because then you have so much value to give.
yeah,
And when you approach everything, it goes to like the fail forward, right? When you go to things, anything in life, specifically what we're talking about, but really anything, when you go into it of like a, dang, this is different and this is hard, you come out so much stronger. And it ties back in and full circles back to mindset. If you can go into every day, no matter what the situation is, and be like, I might fail, but I'm going to do it anyways, your life will change dramatically. And so many opportunities will be given to you because the universe knows you're willing to take them.
yeah.
And that will change your life. That's where you'll get that like foundational. And I love that you're doing that for people. That stuck out to me in the beginning of this when you were like, oh, I want to help people with their financial foundation, not their financial freedom. You're not selling people the quit your 9 to 5 and like do real estate investing period and blah. Like that's what all the gurus will do, right? Like it's a hook. It'll get you in, buy their course, you'll get financial freedom through them, blah blah blah. Like you're not doing that. You're setting them up for success, and you're setting that cornerstone and building out from there. So I love that you're doing that.
Yeah, it's like
I
you
think
give him in, a fish. He eats for a day. You teach him how to fish. He eats for a lifetime, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, you still have to put in the work, like and that's where I think that to me the disconnect from freedom and just like the foundation come in. Like freedom, you're like you're done. You don't need to do anything more. You've reached your Mount Everest. You've reached the summit. The foundation is like, hey, here's the tools. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to be, a real estate investor. That's why it could be a tech startup or a restaurant, or it's like, you know what? I want to have a horse farm where we go and rescue horses. Cool. Now you can go and do that, right? Like
Yeah.
you have to still put in the work. But yeah, that's why that is our goal versus, and it's just true to me. Like I'm not trying to sell like your financial freedom. Like,
Yeah. That can't be sold. Like you should never believe that it can't be sold because it can't be. Like you have to go find it yourself and work for it yourself. But no, I love that you're helping people with their financial foundation.
yeah.
But
Yeah, like just again saying yes to those opportunities, and even if this motivates you to take that one step, right? So saying yes to that business, and then just connecting with somebody. Maybe you don't know how to put it together, but I mean, you could always reach out to me. Like I help structure. I love helping people structure deals. We take in, I don't know how many deals we look at on a weekly basis, but we try and help people structure those deals, even if we're not buying. So you could just go to our website and submit a deal, or you can just message me on Instagram, and I try and help and get back with people as quick as possible.
so that segues perfectly into kind of our closing. Where can people find you? How can they find you? What's your
Yeah, so I'm probably
handles and all
most
that?
active on Instagram at _Jordan_Reyes, Reyes. Our website is jordanreyes.me. It has like what we're buying, where we're buying it, and how we structure deals. There's also some like free resources on there for wanting to buy an RV park or wholesale or whatever. But those are probably the two easiest places. You can submit a deal on there as well. And yeah, if we can help out somebody, we would love to do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me today. It was a good
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah, it was fun.
And I will put all of what you just said in the show notes. So if anyone wants to submit a deal or go look at what Jordan and his team are buying
Love it.
and connect with him, you can do that. But that'll be all for today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.